Hi there and welcome to another video of The Confrontive. Thank you for watching, and if you feel like sharing what I say in these videos, please do, and you can of course subscribe when you want to. Now let's delve into what I want to discuss today. This is quite a fascinating subject to most people. I want to talk about sex and relationships, and mostly how about to deal with others when you engage in them. After all, both of them are at least duo activities and perhaps even group activities, depending on which way you swing and on your lifestyle. While I think that all the subjects I discuss in these videos are important, I think this might be the most important one so far, because it's a subject that nearly everyone, asexuals, deals with, and one that touches us in our most personal space, and also other people's most personal space, both physically speaking, but especially emotionally and psychologically speaking. After all, sex and relationships are about exposing our deepest desires, about exposing our deepest and most private matters, and doing so together with another person doing that very same thing, or at least that's how it should be, if you ask me. Presumably, sexual relationships and relationships in general have always been a fascinating and important subject to people all over the world and all throughout history. And today's world is, of course, no exception. Sex is everywhere, and relationships are too, both real ones and fictional ones. Now, this subject is, of course, very big, so I shall be handling it carefully. That's what she said. Yes, I saw that joke coming. But another word that should fit this conversation, I suppose. But what I want to focus on today is mostly what I think are important things about dealing with both of these very important matters. Now, both of them have been very much in the news in recent years, of course. Why I think it might be the most important subject I've touched upon so far is not just because most people have to deal with it and because it is so personal and intimate, but also because the unfortunate tendency in recent years has been, at least in my experience, that lots of detrimental attitudes, lots of dangerous opinions, and lots of toxicity has been spread by various people, mostly online, but also outside of it, in recent years. And I don't think there will soon be an end to that happening. I do also think that a lot of positive attitudes have been spread by all sorts of experts and influencers and so on too. But I think you'll find that most of this is rather lopsided, in the sense that, generally speaking, and there are very many unfortunate exceptions, unfortunately, it's mostly been women who spread positive attitudes regarding these subjects, whereas also all sorts of men spread negative, dangerous attitudes about both relationships and about sex. And this is something that I think should be offset a bit, because generally speaking, I think we can assume that many boys and men would rather listen to another man than to a woman. Unfortunate, because this is also part of the entire stew of sexism that interferes and influences a lot of society these days. But I won't delve too much into that and just get to the main thing that I want to talk about, instead of risking some sort of feud or whatever with people spreading rather different attitudes. What I should emphasize first is that sex, because I'll start with that subject, is something that should, of course, be enjoyed. It's a game, It's of course a game that can also involve you getting children and all sorts of responsibilities, but mostly it's about enjoying it, despite what all sorts of other people might say about that. Sex should not be about exerting your rights. It should not be about forcing yourself upon others. It should be a duo activity that you engage in with at least one other person to the enjoyment of both, or all of you, of course, depending on what you do. I won't be judging. So it's important in that case that you keep in mind that your own preferences, your own desires should never be more important than that of the other person. So that means that consent, important word, is of course the main thing to keep in mind here, but also that you're engaging in an activity that should be fun to both of you, but in which you should of course also try to find out where your own limitations, but also the other person's limits and boundaries, but also the other person's desires should lie. Basically, I think it's vital that you take sex seriously, but that you also enjoy it. So that probably goes for a lot of things. Enjoy them, but also take them serious. What I think is vital to understand here is that when a person chooses, and that's really important, of course, chooses to have sex with you, that person is giving you a great honor. You should never feel entitled. You do not have a right to another person's body, ever. So when a person allows you to have sex with them, they've let you in their personal space, very personal space, perhaps nearly the most personal space they have, apart from what's in their head, which you will probably never experience fully. And I believe that you should treat that person with that in mind. What you want never trumps what another person wants. And I'm, of course, using an ironic word here, not delving into that any further. Well, sex is, of course, an activity in which you can go all out, and that tends to be one of the more fun things about it. Of course, depending on your personal preference and opinions, not telling you to do anything that you do not like, of course. It's also important to keep in mind that when dealing with another person, respect and restraint are always virtues. I'm not a religious person myself, but I think the word virtue, despite its religious connotations, is quite a good word for what I mean. Namely, that being respectful to another person and what that person has as his or her or their limits and desires and opinions is virtuous, in that it's a very, very good, in fact, even essential trait to have if you want to be a decent and better, a good person. Restraint is also such a thing, because restraint is about inhibiting yourself for, in this case, another person. What I mean to say by that is that by keeping another person's boundaries in mind, you are putting boundaries to what you yourself are allowed to do, and that is keeping track of what you should be doing in any case when dealing with other people. That doesn't mean that you have to be a doormat. I've touched that subject before, but it does mean that you should keep yourself to what another person wants you to keep yourself to. There is, of course, the possibility that what you want is quite different from where another person's boundaries lie. In that case, I think you should still be respectful and you should still restrain yourself, but that you also have something really important to discuss. For example, you might just not be that compatible, or you might have to find other ways of expressing and engaging in what you want to do without hurting, without moving around, without deceiving your partner. You can't, of course, know that beforehand. Sometimes you'll just have to discover that what you want and what another person wants have little overlap. Dialogue, not monologue, is important in that case. Talk about things, even if they might be embarrassing. Now, this will, of course, be an exercise in perhaps shameful things, but it should be worth it if you have found a partner that is worth discussing these things with. If you feel your partner is not worth that, then I think you should realize that either you shouldn't take this relationship or this sex you're engaging in very seriously, or that you should perhaps look forward to meeting another person who you will be able to interact with in a way that you want. As I said, you will not be able to know all of these things beforehand. You'll have to find them out. And how do you find them out? By experimenting and by talking. And perhaps it might just be a better idea to talk before you experiment and run into difficulties the hard way. No pun intended. When you're in love, or when you're just really into a person to the point that you desire them, it is rather difficult to keep your head and your thoughts straight. Another important reason why you should try to engage in these things when you're sober and not when you're in any way intoxicated, though I know reality can be very different. When you find yourself in the situation that you are interested in a person, or fascinated by that person even, intrigued, and that you wonder whether you might want to have sex or a relationship with that person, it can be difficult to know exactly what you're dealing with and whether you're doing the right thing. I have developed, it's very simple actually, I've developed something that I call the three brains theory here to help you with that a bit. We have three brains basically, brains with which we assess another person's attractiveness to us. One is, of course, our regular brain, so that deals rationally with the person we're dealing with. Is this person someone who might be good for us, who might be a good choice to have sex or a relationship with? The second brain is your heart, mainly. Do I feel good about this person? Does this person make me feel happy? Does this person make me want to be a better person? So that's the emotional part. And rather importantly, we also have our third set of brains, which are our genitals, and they tell us whether we want to have sex with that person. Keep in mind that this doesn't necessarily have to be that you want to have that sex with that person immediately. It could just be that you realize that you might want to have it eventually. You do not have to rush things. Take things at your own speed and your own tempo. But the theory, and that might be a big word, amounts to this. When you realize that all three of them say yes, so all three of your brains say, yes, I want this person, that probably means you're on the right track, because this person is apparently someone who you think is a good match for you. This is a person who makes you feel good and who makes you want to be a better person. And this person is someone you're sexually attracted to. If you feel all three, you are probably dealing with someone who is at least worth exploring this with. Of course, you might not want all three brains to think the same. If you're just looking for an intellectual partner, your first brain is probably enough. If you want to deal with a person that makes you feel good and which makes you feel comfortable, you might just be thinking with your second brain, with your heart. And if you feel that you just want to have sex with that person and nothing else, you're probably thinking with your third brain, and that in itself is not a problem either, as long as you're clear about this to yourself and, of course, to that other person. Try not to lead another person on, or try not to deceive that other person when dealing with them. It's not fair to them, and it's probably not fair to yourself either. Moving on to relationships. I think that all three of your brains should be thinking the same thing when you want to move on to a relationship to a person. So your brain should feel good about this person. You should want to engage with them intellectually. Your heart should be feeling good about them. It should feel that you want to deal with this person, that you want to be a better person, and that this person actually makes you feel good. And it's also important, of course, that you might want to have sex with them eventually, or ultimately, or at least at the start, or immediately. It's all up to you. So if one of those things is not the case, you're probably not dealing with the right person to have that relationship with. And that other person should also feel the same. So it might be important to discuss the three brains theory with your prospective partner, or your real partner, of course, when you're already in a relationship and have your doubts, because that might happen too, of course. Once you're actually in a relationship, you will have to work on it, of course. And one of the things you'll have to work on is to find out whether or not you're still a good couple. And for that, I think it's also vital that you realize that as a couple, you should be two separate individuals who have decided to be together, but who have not decided to be identical. You shouldn't be. So what I think is important when you're in a relationship is that you match. That's a very vital thing. You match, but you do not merge, as in you do not become that same entity. That's rather disturbing, and I feel that it's never healthy, because it always means that at least one person is subjugating their mind to the other person, more or less. But that you should try to complement, to be complementary. So basically, you're looking at a yin-yang situation in which you and your partner are helping each other out, more or less, and find a balance in which both of you are equally represented. This is something that will probably take more time than just a week or a month or whatever. It's something you'll have to keep working on. And sometimes things will not work out, or they might need more time to get worked out. That is not a problem, not by itself, at least, not in itself. But it is something you should realize and that you should take serious as well. What I mean by that is that you should always have your own thoughts, and that you should always be able to engage in activities without the other person. In fact, it should perhaps be necessary that you have activities on your own in order to preserve your own individuality, but also in order to still like each other. Because one of the problems you might run into when you're in a relationship and see that person a lot, or even the entire time, is that you lose part of what makes that person fascinating to you, because the daily running of your lives might be taking priority over the relationship and over the emotional aspects of your relationship. So there can be a sort of de-erotization taking place here that is perhaps difficult to combat when you live together and you'll have to work things out together, and you're basically running your house, or running your home, or running your lives as a type of business in which both of you are partners. But it is something you should try to avoid, however difficult it might be. Just as you do not have a right to another person's body, you do not have a right to another person's life, or other person's mind. It is a wrong attitude to want to know everything about your partner, or to want to know to want your partner to know everything about you. You should have an individuality of yourself. By definition, of course, your individuality is a personal thing. It's of yourself. And you are allowed to have secrets in the sense that parts of your mind may be closed off to another person, to the person you have a relationship with, and that is not by itself and in itself a problem. It might be a problem if those parts of your mind are particularly dark, but if they're parts of your mind that are just private, but not necessarily wrong or dangerous or whatever, but that you just want to keep private for whatever reason, you should be allowed to do so, I think, as long as it is not hurtful or dangerous to the other person that you're keeping those things secret. When you're in an actual serious relationship, you will also run into all sorts of issues that are not necessarily ones you chose to have to deal with, or that are all that sexy or romantic or whatever, but that will still occur. You might be thinking of things to do with finances, with disease, with family members, with trust, with buying things, with whatever, of course. Opinions could be, like I said, could be whatever. Some of these things you will just have to accept. It might be a good thing to be just like your partner and to think alike in every single way, but when you want to achieve that, on the whole, I think you're striving for the impossible. If you are actually in a situation like that, well, congratulations to you. You might just be a unique person, because it seems like a very, very, very unlikely ideal to me that you are just the same and think the same in every single way. One of the things that is important here is that you accept, or try to accept, what your partner is like, as long as, of course, those things do not involve anything that is harmful, dangerous, or in any other way negatively affecting you. If you realize that you yourself have opinions or do things or act in ways that hurt your partner, work on them. You might not be able to solve them immediately, of course. Some things are too difficult to handle or too difficult to solve one way or another, but will involve time. But at least realize that you're in that situation and realize that you need to work on them, that you need to do something. I'll round things off here to avoid having a lot to deal with and avoid having people just break off this video without reaching the end. I think what I said regarding sharing what is important and keeping private what you want to keep private, as long as it doesn't hurt another person, can be summarized as this: mind your mind, by which I mean that you should take your mind and your thoughts, your opinions and so on into account, that you should take care of it. You shouldn't want to share the entirety of it, the entire contents of your mind with that other person, because that might be too much for that other person to handle, and it might be too much for you to want to engage in. But that you should discuss those things to do with your mind and your feelings, of course, as well, that impact what your partner is dealing with, that impact you and your partner together. We've now come to the end of what I wanted to say. So in general, I think we can summarize things like this. Mind your mind, mind your manners, mind another person, and mind another person's boundaries. Basically, if you keep these things into account, I think you are pretty much on your way to being able to deal with both sex and relationships very well indeed. Keep them in mind and it might get you far. At least that's what I hope for. Okay, thank you for watching this video. Once again, I hope you learned something from it, or at least gained some new insights from it. And if you feel like sharing this video or subscribing to my channel, please do.